Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Buena Vista University, Coach Austin Dickinson. Before we get into Coach Dickinson's story, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Buena Vista. It's located in Storm Lake, Iowa. They have 1,959 students. The acceptance rate is 77%. The grad rate is 59%. It's $53,000 before aid. It's $18,000 after aid. The top three majors are elementary ed, human services, and business admin. Obviously, again, these are just the broad strokes. If you think that Buena Vista is a place for you, make sure you're talking to the coach that's recruiting you. Make sure you're talking to your family, your guidance counselor, and go onto the website www.bvu.edu, and you can get all that information here. But without further ado, this is Coach Dickinson. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Buena Vista University, Coach Austin Dickinson. Coach, thank you for joining me.
Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Coach, I'm going to do this the same way I do every week. I'm going to throw you in that time machine, talk to you about your playing days, and work our way to today. So in 2006, how do you find yourself at Buena Vista University?
Yeah, it does go back a ways now. You're right. I was fortunate enough to have a great relationship with my head coach at the time, Coach Jay Anderson, and our defense coordinator, Coach Larry Anderson. But even before that, I grew up kind of coming to games at BV. A lot of kids from my high school came here. You know, it was one of those things. If you're going to play football in college, a lot of those guys went to Buena Vista, and I was fortunate to have some guys I looked up to and still do this day, right, that came here and played. And, fortunate to have one of them on our staff right now working with our receivers still. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I had some opportunities to look at other places as well. But when it came down to it, the relationship with the coach is number one. The facilities and just the vision of the program at that point with Coach Anderson was really sold me on it. So I'm really fortunate to choose BVU in 2006, and obviously got me back to where I am now. So
now, after those 4 years, when did you know coaching was the avenue that you were going to take?
I would say probably after my junior year, kind of during my junior year of college. I went through a couple majors my 4 years here, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then really came to that I wanted to coach, and leaned on my coaches here. Had an opportunity to go up north my senior year, applied for a job after the season, went up to Minot State in North Dakota and interviewed up there with Coach Rudolph. And really our DB coach at the time, GA'd for Coach Rudolph at St. Cloud State when he was the OC there. So there's a little connection, and it's fortunate to go up there and work with him, and had a great experience. But I would say that junior year is really when it got really into my mind that I wanted to coach moving forward in my life.
Now, after those 2 years, because it's 2 years up at Minot, right?
Yep.
After those 2 years, we're going to come back home for a second. Why the decision to come back to Buena Vista in 2012?
Well, just like any GA, right? That time ends and you got to find a job. And again, leaned on my coaches here, Coach Anderson, both of them, Larry and GA, and they had an opening here to come back, kind of working with the O-line tight ends and our O-line coach at that time. So it was a no-brainer. Obviously, a place I knew a lot about, a place I cared about. And so I was fortunate to come back here and work for really 5 seasons and really cut my teeth again, more of in a full-time role. Had some extra responsibilities, obviously working with O-line tight ends, their line guy. Then got moved back to defensive line those final 3 years, recruiting coordinator. So really a lot of great experiences there to learn on those guys. I was familiar with it, so it was a good feeling to come back and be able to help us win football games.
Now, was it easier for you? I've had coaches on in the past where, they finish their playing days, they immediately become a GA at the school that they were at, which, you go from being the guy that can joke around and be that's in the locker room to being a guy that's in an office. Was that an easier transition to take the 2 years and then come back and be able to be part of the BVU family again?
Absolutely. You're a little bit more removed at that point from the playing days. So, those guys we're older now, seniors, that I was able to play with when I was a freshman. But yeah, I think it's much easier to go away for 2 years, come back, and you have a different vision too than what you had when you're a player. I always kind of joke, if I knew what I know now when I was a player, I'd been a better player, right? Would have been a much better player than I was. So it was an easier transition, no doubt, to come back after those 2 years at Minot State.
Okay. And then, so after the 5 seasons, back home, why was it time to kind of spread the wings and make the move to North Dakota?
So we had a coaching change here at BV after the 2016 season, and I stuck around with the new staff for a while, and at that point I knew I probably needed to expand my horizons a little bit, right? And so I was fortunate to get a hold of Coach Rudolph, who I GA'd for at Minot State. He was the offensive coordinator at the University of North Dakota. So I called him, and they had a QC spot open, working with quarterbacks, which was eye-opening, right? Probably the furthest thing from a quarterback coach you can be at that point. So, but going up there, working with him, and obviously I learned a ton of football from Coach Rudolph, not only as a GA, but as a QC working under him at North Dakota. And he challenged me in multiple different ways. When I got to Minot State, he asked me where I felt more comfortable, coaching O-line or D-line. And I said D-line. I'd feel much more comfortable coaching the defensive side. And he goes, great, you're going to work on offense. All right. And it was a learning curve, right? Coming in as a young kid, right? First coaching job. And those guys know more than you know about the system at that point, right? Day one. So having to really work to catch up and cut your teeth that way. But having that experience and obviously just working with Coach Rudolph and all the rest of the staff at those places, gained some valuable experience. So yeah, that was what kind of took me up to North Dakota for that season. And I was fortunate to work with a lot of great coaches up there that I still talk to this day. And those guys have not all of them, but some of them have left to go different places. And just to really that college coaching family, right? You're still in touch with those guys all the time at different places. You're learning different things each and every day. I'm calling those guys all the time. Well, my first head job here, called Coach Rudolph probably 3 or 4 times that first fall camp, right? Like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And stuff that I thought was, almost end of the world. Hey, what do I got to do? How do I fix this? How do I go about this? And it was good to hear him a couple of times say, hey, stop.
It's not that. Yeah. Calm down.
This is going to take care of itself. We can't worry about that. That's not your concern. Worry about X, Y, Z. And so having those relationships was really key to where I am now for sure.
And Coach, maybe this is a blatantly obvious question, but is that what makes the coaching family and the college coaching carousel kind of exciting for a lot of coaches? Because there are those connections out there where you never know where this stop might help you down the road on that stop, and obviously getting to the end goal, which is being a head coach of a football program.
Yeah, absolutely. You never want to burn those bridges, right? At some point, every one of those guys I've worked with in my career, whether they were a GA, whether they're a QC, head coach, like they've all taught me something, right? But yeah, that is exciting. I think for the family aspect too. My wife's got some of her best friends are from some of those other spots we've had.
Yeah.
So friends that we still have to this day, right? Still talk to quite a bit, still visit with, once or twice a year, seeing them at different places, going to visit them coming to us. So that's, yeah, it's a whole new relationship aspect, just away from the football side of things even.
Now, after that year at North Dakota, you make a move again. 2 seasons, you end up at Minnesota State.
Yep.
Why was Minnesota State the right fit for you?
Well, after North Dakota, right, looking for kind of get back into a full-time role. And obviously I wanted to get back on the defensive side. D-line is kind of my passion, where I spent most of my career coaching. And that job opened up, and so I applied. I was fortunate to get an interview and head down there to Mankato and talk to those staff. And there is some crossover there. Coach Glogowski was our defensive coordinator. Jim Glogowski, now the head coach at Sioux Falls.
Okay.
And when I was a player here, an assistant, he was the head coach of a different team in league in our conference. So I coached against him, played against him. Our offense coordinator, Coach Joe Bashaner, was the offense coordinator of that same team that Coach Glogowski was on. So there was some familiarity there.
Yeah.
Our head coach, Coach Hoffner, GA'd at North Dakota with Coach Swigert, the head coach of North Dakota. So there was a lot of connections I didn't really know about at the time, per se. And was fortunate to go down there and interview with those guys, and fantastic staff. Obviously a fantastic program. They've done some really good things. And fortunate to get the job and work with the D-line down there and have 2 great seasons. And, Coach Glogowski's still a guy I talk to probably once every 2 weeks,
Okay.
whether shooting a text back and forth or calling. I probably learned more about defense with Coach Glow in that 2 years than I did probably the rest of my career.
Yeah.
So fortunate to work with those guys. And like I said, we obviously had two great seasons, right? Finished in the 2018 season in the semifinals, and then played the national championship game in 2019. And those are experiences, not only with the coaches, but with your players, right?
Yeah.
And just stuff you'll never forget. So that time was great. Again, got to thank my wife, obviously moving every year, every 2 years for a while. Fortunate to get her, and she's on board with everything we do. And it was, again, a chance for me to get back to coaching D-line. That's what I want to do. That's kind of where my focus is at that time, and still where I spend most of my time at practice now. I try to get all the most position groups throughout, but kind of catch myself veering down to the D-line area more often than not during practice and indie drills.
Now, Coach, after those 2 years, why the move to Wisconsin?
Yeah. Obviously a chance to be defensive coordinator. And for defensive line coaches, it is harder at times than linebacker coaches or DB coaches to get a DC job. And
is that because you guys aren't as flashy as us skill guys?
Right. Yeah.
Big skill and skill guys tend to be a little more. There's a little bit more flash to it. Where them big guys up front, they're put your hand on the ground and let's see about it.
No doubt about that. I'm not a big flashy guy. You're not going to see me wearing the chains on the sideline, or we don't have a turnover. I don't like that stuff, right? Let's just go play football and try to win football games.
Right.
But yeah, I talked with Coach Bashana. Wesley Bashana was the head coach at that time, and his brother was our OC at Mankato, Joe Bashana. So there was that connection there. And Coach Glow coached Wesley at South Dakota. So again, big crossover path in the college football world. I went down and talked with Wesley, and I had a great opportunity to lead the defense there at Eau Claire. And obviously we didn't do as well as we wanted to, right? We didn't get the results we wanted to. But having that experience, right, wrong, or indifferent, learned ways not to do things, learned ways to do things. Obviously, I think that's like any coach. What kind of got me to where I am now and how we're doing things now, I got from all those experiences, right? I'll find ways that I won't ever do things again because of the way it turned out or what happened in those experiences. So, it was a great move. Again, for me, went to coaching linebackers instead of D-line. And then obviously worked a lot with the DBs too, which is good to get that experience. Just that next step in the progression of college coaching, right? Wanted to be defensive coordinator. Wanted to see how I could do, right? Yeah. Just like anybody, challenge yourself a little bit. So that was the reason we took the move to Wisconsin.
And then why in 2023 was it time to come back to where it all started?
Obviously, BV's a special place to myself and my wife, right? We both went to school here, met here at BV. We're both from Iowa. So getting back closer to the roots a little bit. And when the job opened, it was definitely something we talked about and decided we should look more into. Yeah. And had some great conversations with the administration here, athletic administration, the President Lensmeyer, fantastic human being, does a great job for our university. And when I came and talked to the people here at BV and just the vision they have, not only for our football program, but the university in general and where we're going and what they're putting forth and the amount they're putting into facilities, not just athletics, but for general students too. Right. It was a no-brainer, right? It was a no-brainer. We've done some really good things here in the past. We've got to get back to that level. And we have some work to do, no doubt about it. We've got to coach better, number one. Right? It falls on us. We got to do a better job coaching. We got to do a better job playing, all of that stuff. But our goal is to put guys in a position to be successful. And I think here at BV, with the support we have through the administration, there's no doubt we can get there. We got to make sure we do our job.
Right. So let's talk about recruiting for a second. For those that aren't familiar, what is Iowa high school ball like? And what are you looking for other than the kid got to be able to play ball? What are you guys looking for when you're going out there on the recruitment trail to bring a guy to BV?
I think there's a ton of different aspects, right? For kids all over the place. We do recruit kind of, I don't want to say nationwide per se, but we have kids from, obviously Iowa, surrounding states. Colorado's been really good to us. North Texas, some of those areas. But number one, you got to find a good kid, right? I want a good kid. They can be the best football player in the world, but if they're a bad teammate, it's going to be a detriment to our football program. So we got to find people that are good people and aren't afraid to work and compete.
Right.
Tell kids all the time, we won't promise you anything. We'll promise you an opportunity, but you got to come in and put the work in. So guys that love football, and number one, I should say number two, guys that want to be here, right? If you want to be a BV, that says a lot more than just being a good football player. Right? There's kids that come in and start day one as a freshman. There's kids that don't start until they're a senior. It takes all kinds of guys to be a good football program. So making sure we find the guys that fit who we are as a football program, as a university, and also where we're located. Obviously, we're a rural town, about 15,000 people. Not a big flashy city, right? We don't have all these malls and things of that nature, Top Golf, anywhere like that. It does take a certain person, right? Yeah. And we want to find those guys that want to be a part of what we're doing. My old coach I used to work for, Coach Bashan at Eau Claire, said all the time, I use it to this day. Like, we want volunteers, not hostages. I want guys that want to be here. And if they don't want to, that's recruiting, right? You get told no a lot in recruiting. That's okay. Right? We'll find the next guy that wants to be here. And we'll continue to develop our roster that way.
Now, Coach, before we jump into how the 2023 season ended, I kind of want to jump forward and pick your brain a little bit. So the first thing is playoff expansion. I believe we're going to 40 this fall. A lot of controversy this past fall about, we're getting closer to that cliff of it's going to be automatic qualifiers and nobody's going to get an at-large bid. How do you decide the at-large bids? Do you think that expansion, it was the right time? And are you for it? I mean, or are you of the mindset? I've talked to a couple coaches that are, hey, I went 9-1 and didn't get in because we lost that game. So where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mixed bag a little bit, right? I think the more opportunities you can pursue the players is a good thing, but at the same time, you do have to earn it, right? We haven't talked to our guys about, the expansion, anything like that, or playoff. Like, we got to take care of business each and every week.
Right.
So, I mean, it is kind of a catch-22. I see the pros and cons on both sides, but I think you do get into how many games is too many sometimes, right? You start expanding stuff too much. You look at that with the FBS level, right? Kind of adding more games, and now there's more contact, more wear and tear on the body. Again, I think the wear and tear on the body, every kid would get that when you're trying to compete for a national title. No doubt about it. But at the same time, yeah, if you want to make the playoffs, you win conference, right? That's the best way to do it.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because then you're not putting it in. You're not putting it in the computer's hands. You're not putting it in the committee's hands. You've punched your ticket. It's just a matter of let's go play ball.
Absolutely. We had that a couple times here at BV. Sometimes as a player, one year we went 7-3. We had some tough non-con games that we didn't, and came down to the last game of the year, and we took care of business. But we had to have somebody else win. They didn't. We didn't get it. Like, that's it. We should have won more games then, right? Like, we can't worry about who everybody else is playing and, hey, make sure XYZ happens. We got to win our football games, right? We got to take care of business each and every week, and then that'll take care of itself.
Absolutely. Now, the other big news coming down the pipeline and the new approval from the NCAA is the availability of 18 iPads per team. I don't know. Have they kind of ironed out the whole, if this team doesn't have iPads, then nobody uses them? Where do you fall on the introduction of the iPads? Are you guys going to be using them this year as a conference? Where do you guys fall?
Our conference has had some conversations about that. We are still kind of in the introductory stages of trying to figure out what's best. I don't think anybody in our league's going to have 18 iPads. I don't think anybody's got 18 coaches on the sidelines. But I do think it's a positive. I think it's moving in the right direction.
Right.
It's just ironing out some of the details, right? And figuring out, the companies that are going to be involved in that, what you can use, what you can't use. As far as if we have 8 coaches on our side and they have 15 on their side, I'm on the mindset, let them have 15. They have 15 coaches. They got 15, let them use it. And that doesn't bother me. Not everything's always fair.
Now, do you think
But
do you think this also opens the door at the Division III level for replay? Because you'll have the availability of the iPad on the sideline where an official may be able to say, "Oh, hold on, let's not make this about us. Let's go and actually get the call right."
I do think we're moving towards that. You know, at Division III level, we kind of are that trickle down. You know, happens at the FBS level, FCS, D2 down to us. I think we'll get there, especially the way technology keeps improving each and every year. I do think it'll happen. I do think it is a positive for us. I think replay is good, but at the same time, there's going to be mistakes. That's
right.
Officials are going to miss something. Heck, I'm going to make a bad call. Like I don't think we can water down what we're trying to do on the field by having replay every 5 to 10 minutes. Right. I think maybe there's a certain aspect to it. Reviewable plays for our level maybe aren't the same as they are at the Division I level.
Right.
But I do think it is a benefit to have at our level. I think it will get to us. When that happens, not sure. Right. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years that we have that opportunity to get replay. And I do think it would, in the grand scheme of things, it would be a positive for our level.
Right. Because I mean, you're talking about, like you said, it doesn't have to be every 5 minutes, but if it's a play, a scoring play, or maybe we say the guy was out, but the wide receiver makes a hell of a catch and he gets that toe down. I mean, it's nice to have, and people have to also realize this isn't CBS and ABC and everything. These are probably going to be student run cameras. So Coach, let's talk about the 2023 season. First year as a head coach. You got your first win against Luther College. You guys go 2-8 overall, 2-6 in the conference. Just what was that first year like as a quick synopsis from your vantage point?
Yeah, it was a learning curve. That's for sure. You know, I did find out being a head coach, you do coach a little less ball. That's for sure. A little more administrative work and kind of working with the coaches more or less than the players overall. But it was fun, right? Fortunate to have a great group of coaches, great group of guys on our roster, battle their butts off each and every week. And we didn't play well enough, right? We didn't coach well enough. We didn't play well. Talk about that all the time. It's no one else's fault but ours. You know, there was some games that we had opportunities in late in the game that we didn't capitalize on. So made some runs, you know, late third quarter, then kind of let the wheels fall off a little bit in the fourth. So that's stuff that we got to control, that we will. I'm very proud of our guys. We continue to improve each and every week, right? It would have been very easy, you know, get that first win, week 6, right? That's a long time to wait for a win. I tell you that. Right. But our guys kept battling, they kept believing. And then going into the last game of the year, you know, we're 1-8 going to the last game of the year. And very easily you guys could have said, you know, hey, season's over. We're not making playoffs, not doing this, whatever. But we had argued our best week of practice, week 11 there. And the guys came out, obviously windy day at Storm Lake, about 30-mile-an-hour winds coming off the lake. But they battled. Played great. Obviously, started coming back a little bit towards the end of the game. Had to get a pick at the end to kind of seal it. It was exciting to watch those guys grow throughout the year. And we had a lot of young guys play for us this year, a lot of freshmen, sophomores, obviously some junior, seniors in there, but we're a very young team. So guys got some experience. Like I said, continue to improve, get better each and every week. So I'm excited about where we're going into this season. Very excited. We found some ways not to do things, right? And I think getting to know your team helps too, right? We got to know who they are, what they can do, what they can't do, where we can put them, where we shouldn't put them, because that's what it comes down to, right? There are some situations, some games that I didn't coach well enough, plain and simple, right? I didn't put our guys in a position to be successful, and getting to know your team more, getting to know what they can do, like I said, is important. So excited to move into year 2, no doubt, kind of putting year 1 behind us and learning from it. But a lot of guys coming back, a lot of newcomers coming in. They're going to help us out, and excited to see what we can do here in 2024.
Speaking of 2024, is there any, what's the biggest difference, I guess, between this off season and your first off season?
I think really the biggest thing would be how comfortable guys are in our system.
Okay.
Right. Coming in that first spring, we put an entire new system in.
Mm-hmm.
So 16 practices isn't that many practices in a spring ball to install all this stuff. But we got it in, obviously come back during fall camp, rehash all out again. And guys are learning right throughout the year still.
Right.
Especially some of those freshmen that come in and they're playing for you or transfers. It is a learning curve. Mm-hmm. Some of these kids have played in 2, maybe 3 systems over the last 3-4 years.
Right.
And so making sure we kind of talk about dumbing it down a little bit. I don't want guys out there running around trying to make checks and calls and change the play line of scrimmage based on 18 different factors. Mm-hmm. Let's make a call. Let's get us in the best position possible and go play football. Right. It comes down to, can our 11 guys out execute their 11 guys? I always tell our guys, it's not rocket science. I'm not smart enough to be a rocket scientist. That's why I'm a football coach. Right. Like, it doesn't matter all the other things going on. We have to execute our play at a higher level than they execute their play. Plain and simple. So we kind of did. We dumbed it down a little bit later in the year. We might have had a little too much going in early on. So bringing it back, letting those guys go play. That's what it comes down to. We're not, as football coaches, we're on the sideline. We're not doing anything, right? It's the guys that are on the field that are doing the work. Mm-hmm. So let's give them all the tools. Let them find the tool that works each play for them and go out and execute at a high level. So, like I said, we did some really good things, and then there's times we didn't do very good things, right? We didn't execute at a high enough level. So, kind of going back to the basics again last spring, reinstalling the basics, getting the, our top 4 or 5 calls in, and then we'll continue to build off those. But I'm in the thought process of I'd rather have our guys run 1 call that they know perfectly than run 18 to 20 calls that we're hitting about 75-80% on.
Right. Coach, what, in your opinion, you're a Division III guy, what's the significance of Division III in the grand aspect for, and specifically football, but in the grand aspect of trying to get kids into secondary education and coming out in 4 years with a degree? What's the significance for you?
Going back to the kind of what you asked about recruiting wise, we want to find guys that want to be here. Right. Yeah, we're not paying these guys, cost of attendance or a scholarship or anything like that. So got to find guys that want to be here for the right reasons. And obviously football is a big part of that. No doubt about it. Right. There's a large percentage of our players that pick BV because of football, but knowing they're going to get a great education with that. So, guys that want to be here and put the work in, guys that love football. Because if you don't love football and you're paying here to come play, usually doesn't work out if you don't love football. So that's the biggest thing. I think our guys don't put any less time in than any other division. Right? They're still getting up in the morning for workouts. They're still going to practice. They're still coming for meetings. They're going to study halls for certain hours a week. I don't think that's any different than the Division II schools I've been at, right? Or NAIA schools I've been at. Right. So, I mean, it's guys that want to be here. Like I said, again, volunteers, not hostages. We got to find those guys that love football, that want to be a part of BV football and help continue us develop our program to where it can be. Because there's a lot of guys, don't get me wrong, a lot of guys that can play college football. Mm-hmm. There are. But are you willing to put in the time? Right. And we've been fortunate to have a great group of guys that have done that, right? They have put in the time, put in the effort. They got after it this offseason, came ready to go in spring ball. Excited about the guys we're bringing in too, going to do the same thing. So the level side of things is
an inch here, 5 pounds here, Yeah. A little bit longer this way, a little bit bigger out. I mean, that's all it comes down to.
Yeah, there's some guys that when I was at Mankato, we had some guys, hey, we want to be this tall and be this big to play this position, X, Y. And yeah, you can do that when you're a little more selective, right? And you have scholarship money to give out. Here, no doubt we're still going to be somewhat selective, right? We don't just take anybody that says, oh, I want to play a little football, right? We got to find the guys that, yeah, they might be a DN that's not 6'3", might be 6 foot, maybe he's 5'11", but you know what? He's got a motor that doesn't stop. Right. And we can win with those guys. Mm-hmm. We can do things like that. So, the height, weight stuff, requirements like that, obviously my mind has shifted from when I was at, UND or Minnesota State. Those things have changed. Now it's, can this guy play football? Right. And is he a guy that we can count on to do the right thing all the time? Mm-hmm. And yeah, he might be a little undersized. He might be 10 pounds lighter, 2 inches shorter, but I tell you what, he freaking runs the ball. Right. His motor doesn't stop. He practices like it's the Super Bowl every day. Those are guys that we continue to win with.
Mm-hmm. Coach, we've come to that point where it's just 5 random questions. We're just going to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Ooh, I don't know. Probably got a couple different answers. They're completely different. I think in the mountains somewhere would be kind of cool, but also like the beaches of Hawaii, right?
Okay.
I think that'd be a nice spot. My wife's brother's out in Hawaii, went and visited a couple last year, and I don't think she wanted to leave. And so I think if she'd be pretty mad if I didn't say Hawaii, because that'd be a little beach life and wouldn't be all bad.
No. How long have you and your wife been married?
So we got married in 2011. So Yep, going on 13 years this year, and it's been a journey. We had 2 little ones. So last year had our youngest daughter about 7 days before fall camp. So that was it's a tough fall camp. Going to first year's head coach, have a newborn, another one that's 2 years old or 3 years old at the time. So it was an experience, that's for sure.
What's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Ooh, I mean, there's a lot of them. Right? I learned a lot of things. I think just understanding that, like, you gotta go out and play the game, right? We can't control as much as we are controlling as college football coach or football coaches in general. Okay, for junior high, high school, you want stuff to go a certain way, right? We've got to trust that we're going to put our guys in the best position and go out and allow them to play football, right? We can't micromanage. Like I don't micromanage our coaches. We hired OCs to be the head coach of offense. Our DCs, the head coach of defense. Our linebackers coach, the head coach of linebackers. Like I got to give those guys the leeway that we hired them for to be their position coach. And then same thing with our players that go out and we're trying to give them all the knowledge we can, right? I don't expect any of our players to spend as much time as we do as coaches. Right. In game planning, in film preparation. Like they don't have time to do that. They're full-time students. They have to have a little bit of a social life, right? All that stuff. So we've got to find the smallest amount of information that's going to make the biggest impact for those guys each week and give that to them and keep hammering that away and let them go play football. Right. I think the more we try to micromanage our players as far as like, hey, when I was a player, right? Oh, that wasn't a 6-inch step. That's a 7-inch step. I ain't smart to figure out what the difference is between a 6-inch, 7-inch step. Like, get your foot in the ground, push you can, let's go. Like those type of things. Give those guys as much leeway as we can within our system to go be a football player. That's huge.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing and why?
You know, I grew up on a farm. I always thought, being a cattle farmer, grew up on a cattle farm. I'd probably do something like that back in the day. Now, being so far removed from being home on the farm and living the so-called city life these days, I don't know if I could go cut it anymore. But doing something outside, I don't know what that – I'm not a construction guy by any stretch of imagination. Don't ask me to do that. But I wouldn't want to sit behind a desk every day. Right. Something where you just like coaching. It's new practice every day. It's new challenges, new obstacles, something that you can get out and face that way. But also there's got to be some sort of competitiveness. Right. We all want to win no matter what we're doing. Right. So, I started in education, kinesiology, history education before I went to sports management. So, teaching is one aspect I thought I'd go into. Now, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. All the teachers out there are.
Understood there. We talked right before that we started recording about how I started down the education path, and thankfully somebody said communications might be better for you.
No.
Best compliment you've ever received, Coach?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. Put me on the spot with that one. I guess I couldn't pinpoint one, but I'd say probably something from like wife or kids, right? Your kids say something, she just turned 4. They don't know the difference between what they're talking about half the time, but they tell you how great of a dad you are, how good of a husband, like that stuff's important, right? I think that's something we we lose track of sometimes as football coaches. And I think for me, being a head coach, that's kind of getting to set the schedule and still have time for the family at home. And so I would say something from the wife or kids is probably the most important, but obviously that goes a long ways.
And then on the other side of compliments, it's the best insult you've ever received.
Oh, I'm sure somewhere along the coaching route, getting my butt chewed, right? Doing something the wrong way. It's probably, but again, I don't know if necessarily insult per se, but kind of motivation to, hey, get your head out of your butt and start doing things a different way. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Again, going back to Wesley Bishoner at Eau Claire that I worked for, he had a couple of different stories he always told our guys in fall camp and different passages he had them read. And, one was about it's called the blue vase, and just find a way to get it done. Right. And I think that's in my career. One of your coaches, superiors tells you, hey, do X, Y, Z. They're not wanting 18 different questions. They want you to go figure it out, find a way to get it done, and come back when it is done. So I'm sure early in my career, I was the exact opposite. I want to make sure I do it the right way and ask all these questions, and probably got some words I didn't want to hear, but then we got the task done.
And then the last question we've asked everybody since we started this show, was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Just overarching career-wise, you're saying?
Yeah.
A question I was not expecting?
Or was expecting. Was there something that you were like expecting to be asked about? And if I didn't ask it, how would you have answered what you expected me to ask you about?
I think going back to when I interviewed for this job here at BV, going into the interview process with the president, the VPs, the athletic director, there was hardly any talk about football, right? Like It was a lot of, recruiting side of things, no doubt. That's very important, obviously. Relationships, goals, thought process for the program, but very little X's and O's, right? And, the grand scheme of things, now that you think about it, I understand that they expect you to figure that out, right? That's our job.
Yeah.
But that was a little surprising to me. Obviously, hadn't had many head coaching interviews going to that time. And even the ones I had before that, again, not many X's and O's. They didn't care much about how you're going to do it. It's what are you going to do? Right.
Well, Coach. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah. So I'd say that's the strangest situation I had in that world.
And I think that's probably a good thing, right? Like that's not their job. Their job isn't, your job's to win football games and get your team the grad rate. You want the grad rate to be high, the retention rate to be high, but that's your part of it. Their part when they're hiring you is, are you going to bring the right people in? What is your vision of what the program should be maybe 5 years down the road from a community service side, a grade wise, general good people on campus? So I think that's a good thing that they're not asking so much the X's and O's.
No doubt. I agree with you 100%. Me as a young coach, kind of going through that process though, I had the answers. I was ready to go. Hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Never came up. But
I'm sitting right there in the pocket. I don't need these. They'll just stay right there. I will. All right. Well, Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. I want to get you back to your family as quick as possible with this being the off season. For those of you that are sticking around, we'll be right back. This has been Coach Austin Dickinson, of the head football coach of Buena Vista University. And like I said, we'll be right back, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.